we all sit here and think that we're all perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, as we've just spoken about David, he had these great accolades, was an amazing leader, but succumbed to, this beautiful woman he was looking at when she was bathing on the balcony, and
Yeah.
then trying to cover it up by sending her husband off to war and making sure
Yeah.
he got killed, so.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Apple Pie Club. We're here to take you on a thrilling journey through the realms of practical philosophy and spirituality. I'm Tanya, your practical philosopher, and I'm joined by Skye, your spiritual guide. And our aim is to offer you a holistic perspective on life, blending insights from diverse philosophies and spiritual practices. From personal growth to timeless wisdom, we will cover it all. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or just starting your journey, join us on this adventure. Now, the Apple Pie Club is open to all, and we can't wait to have you along for the ride. So grab a slice of apple pie, the recipes are in the notes, and let's dive into a world of ideas together. And Skye, I'm going to hand over to you to begin this episode.
Yes, thanks. Well, we have an amazing quote by obviously one of the most famous philosophers of all time, Plato, and his timeless, amazing, incredible quotes. This one is, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." So when Plato used this term, the measure of a man, he was referring to the character of a person. And the integrity of the person can be measured by the way he responds to the power that he's been given. And of course, I'm sure every single one of us, our minds are immediately thinking of someone who we know who has abused power, but also has been a great leader. And actually their character and their integrity has stood stood the test of time during their time in leadership and in power. But being a good person is hard enough. It's even harder when you occupy positions of authority. So what do some of the ancient texts say about this measure of a man? And I immediately think of one of the most famous stories in the Christian text. It's talking about the prophet Samuel, where he's looking for a new king and for the king of Israel. And he's been directed to go to this house of a man called Jesse. And Jesse presents to him all of his sons. They come and stand in front of Samuel one by one. And first Eliab comes and he looks good. And Samuel thinks, yeah, this has to be the one. But he gets this sense, this intuition, that this is not the right one. So Jesse presents all 7 sons before Samuel. And all of them, Samuel just does not get the sense of this is the one. Well, eventually he finds out that there is another son who's out in the field tending the sheep. So no one in the household even thought that David had a chance of being a leader. Okay. So, but they went to fetch David, and as soon as Samuel saw him, he said, he's the one that God has chosen. He's the one. And it's a very clear message that, spirit, source doesn't look at our outward appearances and decide the measure of a man from our outward appearances. The measure of the man is determined by our heart. And we all know David became one of the most famous kings of Israel. He conquered Goliath. Every little child knows the story of David and Goliath. And he conquered Jerusalem. But he certainly wasn't a perfect person. He's famous for his indiscretion with Bathsheba and then arranging for the death of her husband. So we mustn't mistake having a good character for someone who never makes mistakes.
Interesting. Now, question, when you say it comes from the heart, is it the heart of the person who's the leader, or of the heart of the person looking at the leader?
Interesting question. Yeah, probably. Well, first of all, the character of the man, I believe, comes from our heart. It comes from us. We lead out of the character of our heart. Are we, we'll get into this a little bit later, but the honesty, trustworthy, integrity, all of those are characteristics, strength characteristics that come from the heart. And the interesting thing, the questions are always, what decision will someone, we probably all make the same decisions when times are easy, but what decisions will we make when we have an opportunity for gain?
So also what you're kind of saying is that when somebody all of a sudden gets into a powerful position, will their character change? Will their character change because they can see they might gain something for themselves as opposed to somebody else?
Yes, yes, that's it. That's the heart of the true character. Will they think of everyone, or will they make the decision that benefits themselves?
Nice. So from a spiritual perspective, it's the heart, having the heart open all the time, not closing it. We've spoken about that in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's look at this from philosophy. So the measure of a man is what he does with power, and this isn't just something philosophical musing. It's an actual call to action, a mirror reflecting our true selves.
Mm-hmm.
So if we imagine for a moment we're in a position of influence, which is what we were just kind of saying,
Yes.
whether it's leading a team, running a company, or anything, but we're in a position of influence. In those moments, you're faced with choices that you can make that define your character. Or you wield your power with integrity and compassion.
Exactly.
Or succumb to self-interest and control. Yeah. And, we can all sit down and think of people who have led for the good and for the bad, possibly even ourselves at moments. Yeah. No, we can't all sit here and think that we're all perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as we've just spoken about David, he had these great accolades, was an amazing leader, but succumbed to, this beautiful woman he was looking at when she was bathing on the balcony, and then trying to cover it up by sending her husband off to war and making sure he got killed, So hopefully we've never, in fact, though, I just read this story in a book I was telling you about, the Breakthrough Experience. Absolutely amazing. There is this lawyer, and he had the most incredible mum. Well, incredible as in terrible. Okay, and
right.
Sorry. He had actually, it is incredible, really. It's hard to believe. His mum tried to kill him on numerous occasions. He landed up in literally landed up in foster homes. And he only discovered this later in life. He went back to look into his past and his childhood. And he discovered through reports, police reports, etc., how many times his mum had tried to kill him. And so this man writing this book actually was working with him and said to him, okay, let's see how many times you display those same actions in your life. And he said, I've never tried to kill anybody. I'm not aggressive. I've never tried to smother anybody with a pillow. I've never tried to stab anybody with a knife. And so these are all the things he found out his mum had done. And as they talked, he began to realize, my business partner would have said I stabbed him in the back. He said, oh, he said, probably some of my clients think I've smothered them, to win the case, basically. And a number of things. He realized that in his adult life as a lawyer, he'd pretty much done to everyone in some form, in a different form, not literally, but in some form, he'd done everything that his mother had done trying to kill him as a child. So yeah, I know we've got a little sidetracked there, but as you said, in some form, we may not think we've done it, but if we have a look at maybe how we are operating our life, I think maybe we say, oh, we've never had an affair with a married woman, or for us, a married man, well, maybe in our mind we have, or whatever, it may not actually
or maybe
specifically,
something else happened,
or maybe
which,
something else. Yeah.
yeah,
We've never killed the husband so that we
yeah,
could have this. Well, have we done something so that we could have this?
yeah,
For instance, as I say, that lawyer had never killed anybody, but he had actually, killed some people to win a case.
yeah, yeah. God,
So
that's amazing. Yeah.
it was a fascinating story, and I know I probably haven't delivered it very well, because I wasn't planning on telling that story, but that's exactly right. Is we think that we're excused because we haven't done exactly that, but maybe we have.
And it's always about reflection, isn't it? And taking what we're talking about and thinking about it, when you come off the podcast, thinking about it and go, okay, well, what have I done, right?
Yeah.
Because we, ultimately through self-growth and self-actualization, it's about learning about other people and yourself at the same time. So going back to Plato, he argued, right, that the real strength lies in using power responsibly by considering its impact on others. I mean, we could just think about the lawyers. We're talking about what Plato says, because he believed it's all about the small things, everyday actions, just as much as the big decisions that end up shaping your reputation and your legacy.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
absolutely true. I actually know of someone, it's really fascinating. I know of somebody who said to me once, I always say, she's never been married, and she said, I always say, well, I skipped 3 divorces. So, she said, well, and I guess it's because we do a lot of self-reflection together. She said, I guess it's because I never really wanted people to judge me because I got divorced, for a broken relationship. Yeah.
So that's why she never got married.
And that's why she never got married. Yeah. And yet later in life, she had this experience where people judged her based on a relationship that
Based on the
she
fact she was never married.
So it didn't, yeah, so it didn't really matter in the end. There's this
Yeah.
wonderful phrase, your greatest fear will come upon you,
Yeah.
and, and maybe it didn't matter that she never got married. In the end, what she really was fearing for not getting married actually came about and came upon.
It's a beautiful quote and power, right? And
so, Tanya, I love your question. Where does your power lie? And it was just the other day that I read a post on Facebook, actually, and they were talking about self-care, and they were saying that they are listing a number of things about self-care, and they were saying exercise, drinking water, massage, I think a few other things. But the last one on the list was owning your power. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I wonder, what does that actually mean to me? So, as you've asked the question, where does your power lie? And what does it actually mean to me to own my power? And so I was thinking about this, and I thought it really is a situation at the moment in our world. Energy and power are 2 words that are being used interchangeably. And so when we consider where we are focusing our energy and where we are giving away our energy, that's where we're giving away our power. So for me, it was to stay centered, to stay calm, to stay true to myself. Then I'm owning my power.
100%. I mean, the word power itself is understanding the usefulness, I suppose, in today's world, because, when Plato was talking about power, how we're living our lives now is completely different. So if we were to look at, so Plato believed that whoever was ruling had to be of good character, so that they made decisions for the rest of society and not for themselves.
Yeah.
But to us to understand what power is, to look at power by bringing to mind a powerful person or the character of what a powerful person really is, actually not that useful in how it plays out into society. Instead, and this is from Michael Foucault, the French historian and philosopher who passed away in the 1980s, he looked at power and he kind of flipped what Plato said around. And he said, well, instead of looking at power as if one person holds all the power, like the president of the United States, you know, or, you know, whatever. And if we're putting all our emphasis on the power of that, we're not going to understand it properly. Instead, we have to understand all the interconnecting relationships from the top all the way down to society and all the way down to how people are behaving, right to the person right in front of you, right into how you're acting.
That's right.
When going back to your friend who decided to not get married, she was giving her power away to somebody else, and given her power away to others by saying, well, if I don't do that, they can, you know, I don't have to ever get divorced. Obviously, something was driving that in the past. But I've also got a friend who mentioned social media, and she said, I put a post out, I immediately got 100 likes in like 5 minutes. I thought, what are you going on about? Do you really seriously measure your likes? And then she even looked further into saying, well, so-and-so, what's wrong with her? She posts the most ridiculous things and they don't get any likes. And I thought, well, number one, not only are you giving your happiness away to how many likes you're getting to people you don't even know, you're also actually looking at people who've got nothing to do with you. And comparing yourself to them. That is, you've completely lost your own power.
Exactly. Social media is huge, where I think we're giving away our power to what people are posting, and we're comparing ourselves. I think that's a big one. I think when we compare ourselves to others, we're giving away our power. I love this idea, to go back to Plato, and that he believed in terms of, as you've been talking about, ruling and the state. In fact, as you said, we put those people there. We give them the power to rule. We, you know, in our modern society, we voted them in, basically. But Plato believed in this concept of a philosopher king, this idea where he believed that, you know, people needed to be qualified to rule with reason and justice and the common good in mind. And I love this definition, or this concept of philosopher king, because I looked into it a little bit, and you couldn't be a philosopher king in those days unless you'd had up to 50 years until you were 50 years of age. And so you had a lot of education in the basic sciences and physical and musical training. So you had physical training, which really helps with mind training. Musical training, actually, most of the philosopher kings, David was an expert at playing the harp. So much so that when he played it with Saul, Saul could feel all of his, you know, his demons leave, you know. So it just calmed him down. So they had musical training, and this is what I wanted to spend some time on. They spend years in discussion with others, and I think this is missing. This is why I love our discussions so much, is because so much comes from discussing things with others. And today, in our world today, there's always this idea, or most often this idea of, if you have a different opinion to me, you know, I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong, or we can't discuss it. But the philosophers back in those days, they didn't have that understanding. Good, healthy discussion helped them come to understanding. And I think that is such an important aspect of this concept of a philosopher king. And some of the ones that we know, Alexander the Great, he was a student of Aristotle. You know, he spent his early years, of course, we know he was physically strong, okay, but he spent years studying under Aristotle. And Marcus Aurelius, he was an emperor of Rome, and he was Rome's philosopher king for 19 years. So Plato really believed that these positions of power in government should really be reserved for people who had these characteristics and the manner of a man. They were benevolent and kind and just and altruistic, but also curious, because they were able to understand and have discussions. And I think our political system, as you were talking about, really, it's just no longer worldwide. It's just no longer working. And I wonder what it would take to change these political systems that we live in at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can even recall, going back to when my son was at school and what they were teaching at school and what they were leaving out. There was very little, there was a little bit, but there was very little emphasis placed on how to live a virtuous, high value, moralistic life of happiness and helping others.
Yes.
Yeah, they still did it without a doubt. They went to charities and stuff like that. It wasn't completely missed out.
I think in most schools it is completely missed out, to be honest.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with some of the stuff they'd done. I thought, they'd done the 7 Habits of Mind when they were in kindy and stuff like that, which was all quite good. But as they got older and older and older, mathematics and English,
took
stuff
precedence.
which you probably pretty good chance is, apart from English and maths, but some other subjects you're not going to use that much. So we've got all our politicians going through this education system as well. Yeah. And a lot of politicians are have gone to the elite schools, the elite universities. Yeah. And with that kind of stuff, what Plato was talking about is missed out in a lot of instances, and it can be replaced in some people with a sense of entitlement. Yeah. And when you end up with a sense of entitlement, there is no way you're going to be, that those decisions that they're making are going to be based on sound judgment for the good of other people. A lot of the times it will be of self-interest in some way. And the larger the population's getting, the harder it is to actually control.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just getting, so I don't even know. I don't think you could ever change it now. We've gone
You think we've gone past the point of no return?
Yeah.
That's a bit sad.
Yeah. Unless I wouldn't even know how. It would have to start in the education system, right?
I was just about to say it would have to start at school level again and bring subjects like philosophy into the classroom. So this engage, obviously schools have debate clubs and debate, etc. But it's more organized than this idea of literally, you picture all of these philosophers in those days where they literally just sat around, with their grapes and their wine. It probably wasn't like that at all, but those are the pictures you see. Yeah. And so, yes, the other thing, as I've just said, that is, it's a frame of mind. So at the moment, many of us are around the world, we're in survival brain. We're how to pay off our mortgage, how to pay off our bills, how to pay our bills, how to this 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 8 to 6 or whatever work day that we have, and so we're in the survival brain, and the survival brain doesn't sit back and relax and discuss philosophy. So this is the state our world is in at the moment. And so we have this incredible culture where our brains are just not even in a state anymore of, we're so consumer driven and so driven as to what work we're going to do to pay that everything that we need to pay, that actually we're not even in this frame of mind where we can sit and discuss ideas with each other and learn and grow and develop.
What's interesting there is, because we're not in the state of mind, and if you are tuning into our podcast because you're looking to improve your joy, fulfillment, and happiness in life, is really to understand from a power perspective. You're about to complain about somebody or something and complain and nail it on a specific person. you've got to step back and expand your thinking way out of just a single person or a group of people making wrong decisions, because it filters throughout society even. And we've got to, as individuals, the only way for us make ourselves more in control and happy is to control our power, our own power, and
Yes,
to
exactly.
control what we're reading, what we're listening to, how we're responding to other people, and what role can we play in being kind
Yeah.
and thoughtful of other people around us. I think
Yeah.
the more of us who take responsibility to
Yeah.
be kind,
That's it, actually. That's exactly right.
the
Yeah.
better it will have a ripple effect, like dropping,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
pebble into the water. It will
Yeah.
ripple out.
Exactly.
Because it's hard for somebody to be horrible to you if you're just nice to them and kind to them.
Yes. And
If
I had this situation the other day. I think we may have spoken about it, where somebody was rude to me via text, and I had a choice to make. She didn't understand, she completely misunderstood something I'd said. So do I come back to her, and am I rude back to her, or do I just say, I think, and I think, I'm sorry, you have misunderstood. That text was not for you. It was an accident. It was from another group. And when I explained that, it was like, it was like butter melting. But I could very easily have reacted, and have done so in the past. I'm learning more and more to be kind. And another thing I want to say too, though, is somebody, in fact, the same person did exactly the same thing again, only recently, a few days ago. And that's when I stopped and said, okay, I'm not going to be unkind, but I think it's time for me to pull out of this relationship now. And so being very aware, there's a wonderful book called The Body Says No. And so if we don't say no, the body will say no. If we don't say no to abuse, if we don't say no to people treating us unfairly or unkindly, the body will catch up, and it creates illness and disease. And there's amazing stories about that, actually, scientific evidence of how the body has an illness because people have suppressed their emotions. And so when we're talking about being kind and the measure of a man, it isn't just being, and of course it's mankind, the measure of a person. Of course, it's not just being this gentle little person who just allows everybody to, treat them like a doormat. And no, it actually, the only definition that I can describe it for me is to be me, be myself. And if I'm thinking that I've said something wrong, apologize. If I'm thinking that I have this opportunity right, at this point to behave like this or to behave like that, as you've said, we take 100% responsibility. It's Jack Canfield's, out of his 99 success principles, his book 99 Success Principles. Number one is take responsibility for yourself. And that's it. You mentioned, Tanya, we can blame, we can complain. We can complain the government. We can complain about the laws. We can blame our husbands or partners. We can complain about our friends. We can, whatever it is, or we can stop at every moment and take responsibility. In what way can I own my power here rather than giving it away?
Because if you're blaming everybody, you're giving them the power.
Exactly.
So anytime you feel angry or anything, I mean, I had an incident on the week. So even though we talk about this, we are human. Getting this taxi, and I'm running late to get to a restaurant. And this taxi driver is like, doop, doo, doo. And like, he's obviously has no idea where he's going. He's hit 2 road closures. And he's about to swing back up the same road again. So I said, no, turn right. He went, what? I said, just turn right and then turn right again. And my friend was talking to him. I thought, this guy cannot drive and talk to you at the same time. He's incapable of it, because he was just turning. Seriously, he ended up charging us $45. It should have cost $10. Right? So in the end, I'm there and I'm trying to be kind. And I thought, so instead of say something to him, I said something to him. I said, can you stop talking to him? Well, I said, just stop talking to him so he can concentrate on where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the end, I couldn't even talk. I couldn't talk. I was just sat in the back thinking, like, trying not to snap because I didn't want to be unkind to him.
Yeah. No, look, we get into challenges all the time. And if we say that we don't,
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, this book I was talking about, The Breakthrough Experience, describes that perfectly. It's kind of like the yin and the yang, where you actually have to have the positive and the negative charge to keep you in a state of equilibrium.
Yeah.
He tells a story of it when he came home from work one day, and he was elated, thinking he's so wonderful because he'd helped all these clients, and these clients love him, and all these people. And he walked into the door, and his wife said to him, where the hell have you been? We're supposed to have left an hour ago. Shh, back down.
Yeah.
But he says, when I come home from work and I've had a really tough day and I'm feeling down, guess who it is who lifts me up?
Yeah.
His wife.
Yeah.
And so we have these people in our lives who, when one brings us up, there's another who's going to try and knock us down, and another one who knocks us down, and then we have these wonderful conversations with friends, and we're back up again, so it's the state of, call it the yin and the yang, call it the positive, the negative. It's these energies that we it's life. And when we well, I know our next podcast is a sneak preview is coming up about adversity. But, when we focus on the adversity rather than the fact that, okay, this is just another situation that's a challenge that's asking me to give my attention to it so I can fix it.
It was giving me a test, and we got out and we looked at each other. We said, should we not discuss that? She went, yeah. I said, okay. And then we'd paused, let it go, and then went on into the restaurant.
That's exactly right. It's because you know what? As soon as you discuss it, you create story out of it. That negative energy just builds.
I was just gone, right?
Yeah, that was a beautiful way.
Yeah.
It happens. Okay. Yeah. So, and then eventually you can laugh about it.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. But and you put things into perspective, really, it's really not the end of the world. But A Course in Miracles says that there's only one problem in the whole world, and there's only one solution. And our problem is that we don't understand the problem, and so we don't apply the solution. And our problem is that we see each other as separate. And so that's the whole idea of my power and your power. And if I give up my power, then you've got more power. And so it's this power play, rather and relationships do it, in fact, that's probably one of the most disastrous things in a relationship, where they start to have this power play. I'm not giving up my power to you. And so I love the story of how a man went to his spiritual teacher, and he said, how should we treat others? And the spiritual teacher looked at him and said, what others?
Oh, lovely.
And the idea is, really, when we can see each other as we're not separate, we're one. Then by owning our power, we're standing in our truth. We're being who we are to the best of our ability. And it isn't force. It isn't striving to be this good person. It's just being. It's being who we are. And then we can see others as one with us. If we give up something, they're not taking. If they're taking, we're not giving up. And I think that's a wonderful way to end this discussion about Plato and our power. The measure of a man in times of power is to really remember that we are all united. We're not separate. And I think the world would be a better place if we could remember that we are connected to each other.
And you can definitely get there through kindness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And not fighting what's happening in front of you and just flowing. Understand the connectedness, what we mentioned earlier. It's not about one person, it's about the whole connection
Yeah.
of interactions and energy.
And I know that this might sound like we're trying to keep it simple, and there are sometimes some really difficult decisions. Okay, what would be the right decision now? What would be the kind decision? And we have to wrestle with these things. And I think that's also why I love to come back to this idea of the philosopher king who had to spend many hours just lounging around discussing things. And I think if we've noticed that as we have discussions, when we have to come up with these decisions, all of that discussion comes into play. Remember I talked with Aristotle once about this. I remember Plato. I had this discussion with Plato once about that, and we came up with this concept. And so I love that idea that we're not simplifying it. That life, although can be beautiful and joyful, it's that balance again. Can be beautiful and joyful. It can have its challenges where we have to decide, how are we going to act in this moment now? How are we going to act in this very moment now? And yeah, it's not always easy, but this is where I'll say to you, can I have a discussion about this? Or or my other friend, are you free to talk about that?
Over an apple pie.
Over a slice of apple pie, which of course your beautiful recipe is it's on the Facebook notes and in YouTube. So
yeah, but it's important, and that's what we encourage you to do: is make an apple pie, or go out with a friend and buy a nice slice of apple pie and open up your conversations.
Yeah, discuss things
and discuss something we've discussed in the podcast.
Yeah,
take it further.
Yeah, or something in their own personal life. I heard this concept about power. How am I giving away my power? What does it mean to me, as I've been contemplating? What does it mean to me to own my power? And I realized for so long, I haven't been confident in who I am. And by not picking up confidence, I've been giving away my power. And so by being confident in who I am, it's taken me a long time, but it's okay. We finally get there. We get there in the end. And so by being confident and believing who I am, I'm beginning to own my power.
Yeah, so lovely. Love it. All right, listeners. So my tip for the day is to identify, especially if you're a social media user, identify, are you a victim of the like button or the share button? Because try to stop doing that. Because if you do that, you're giving your power away to the response of something you've put online. Post without any expectation of what's going to happen. So that will allow you to control your power, right? Just click in and start to understand when someone else is draining you, or you're letting them drain you. Not so much someone else is draining you, you're actually letting them drain you.
That's right. Yeah.
And to start working on that.
Take responsibility.
Take responsibility and control your power, because that's when you'll become happier, more fulfilled, and live a joyful life. Do you have anything else to say, Skye?
I love that tip. I love it. And perhaps we could also just add in there these two concepts: be kind, and how in every day there's, you mentioned it briefly, but I think it's worth going back to, Tanya, as we end, is in order for us to be happy, how do we help others? How can we reach out and help others? It actually adds to our own happiness. So just perhaps think every day, who can I be kind to today? How can I be kind to someone today? And that final word of advice for all of us, me included, is remember we're not separated, and our physical forms may not agree, or we may not understand each other right now, but we're not separated. We are one, and to always remember that is that's a state of power, when we're remembering that. In fact, that's a state of love, which is a state of power, when we remember that we are united. We are always one.
Beautiful. Love it. Well, thank you very much, guys. And we look forward to you tuning in to listen to us next week. Bye for now.